Hello everyone. So I hope all of you are in good health. Today I'll be talking about the former state of Jammu and Kashmir, or the former Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, currently known as the Indian Union Territory of Ladakh and the Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. I would like to inform you that all these maps are not to scale. None of these maps are, and they are for representational purposes only for this video log. So uh, let me begin. Uh, the Indian government, after the abrogation of Article 370, released this map of the new union territories. So Ladakh is this entire area. It composed of Gilgit-Baltistan and Aksai Chin as well, and Jammu and Kashmir, the union territory with a state legislature, has Azad Kashmir as well. So to state it better, let's come here. So currently this is the area, this entire area, that is under the administration of the Indian government. This is Gilgit-Baltistan, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and this is Azad Kashmir, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and this is Aksai Chin, which is controlled by China. This is the line of actual control, and this is the line of control. All right. So before I proceed with the video, I would like to inform you that even though the data that I have gathered is from reputed sources and experts, it may still be prone to errors or mistakes. Hence, the video should not be taken at face value. Please arrive at your own conclusions. The turmoil that is currently in this region, perennially prevalent in this region, is, in my humble opinion, due to politics in India, the newly created Pakistan, Great Britain, and to a certain extent the Cold War between the USSR and USA, as well as the widespread military industrial complex. So with that, let me begin with a history of this region. Way back into the 1800s, the Sikh kingdom had captured Kashmir and Ladakh and had proceeded to attack Tibet. However, they were defeated in Tibet. In the later decades, the imperial British rulers of India invaded Kashmir and defeated the Sikhs and captured the region, this entire region. Subsequently, Gulab Singh became the Maharaja of Kashmir as a princely state under British rule. The British held on to an area in the northwestern frontier, in the northwest part of Kashmir, which is Gilgit. It was created into a Gilgit agency that was administered directly by the British. The imperial rulers did so because they wanted to remain close to the border of Russia and prevent any land attacks from them into this colony of theirs. So, in my humble opinion, The British had a vested interest in the area then, during the partition, and the Cold War, and even now. In my humble opinion, instability in the region allows the Western powers, i.e., the US and the UK, to keep their foot in the door and thus keep an in your face presence next to the Russian borders. Turkey and Germany were the in your face bases for US NATO forces when Russia was the USSR and its borders touched Western Europe. Pakistan was just a military base during the Cold War, not a place where the US kept its nuclear stockpile. The USSR, on the other hand, also had Cuba as its in your face presence next to the US. Now, back to the history of Jammu and Kashmir. So, Gulab Singh's son, Maharaja Hari Singh, became the successor of the princely state of Kashmir after Gulab Singh passed away. By the 1930s, the clamor for independence from imperial rulers had begun gaining strength in India. Indian freedom fighters and the general public participated in various movements, non-cooperation movement, Swadeshi movement, etc. In my humble opinion, this made the imperial rulers uncomfortable, but they never wanted to let go of India, the goose that laid the golden eggs. So they pandered to the politicians of the day by offering some kind of leeway like representation in the government, etc. The British had stymied every effort for independence, and it was brutal during the 1857 revolution, not rebellion as is incorrectly characterized in our textbooks. One of the most brutal acts was the massacre of thousands of people at Jallianwala Bagh who had gathered there to peacefully protest the imperialism. Then World War II happened, primarily, in my humble opinion, because the Western world looked the other way when the nationalist government headed by AH was gaining power. This attitude of letting it grow and fester was what came back to bite the imperialists in their own beep in the form of World War II. The war took a heavy toll on the economy of the UK, hence, they reluctantly had to leave India. But they were not about to let it go so easily. The policy of divide and rule that was so effectively used by the British for nearly 2 centuries was used once again via the communal politics deeply rooted in the Indian subcontinent. In my humble opinion, they were so insouciant about the partition that was to subsequently result in thousands of deaths and displacement of millions that they sent someone called Radcliffe, who had never been to South Asia, to draw the line of partition between India and West Pakistan and India and East Pakistan, which is now an independent and flourishing country, Bangladesh. Radcliffe came and just drew the line on a whim. He was so unaware of the geography and its demographics that he placed Kartarpur, a Sikh shrine, in Pakistan. So India was partitioned as per the Independence Act. The princely states had to choose to accede to either countries. Most princely states acceded, barring Hyderabad, Junagadh, and Kashmir. Hari Singh did not want to accede to either India or Pakistan. He wanted to keep being a Maharaja of a kingdom. Kashmir also had internal politics. One party that was very popular was aligned with the Congress in India. The other party was aligned with Pakistan. Pakistan's ideology was that since Kashmir was a Muslim majority, the region had to cede to Pakistan. So when Hari Singh refused, the then Governor General of Pakistan ordered his army to seize control of the region. But since both India and Pakistan were independent dominions of the UK, even after 1947, their armies had British commanders. Uh, Here I would like to state that India became a republic in 1950, and they didn't have any British commanders after that. Pakistan became a Islamic Republic in 1956, so they still had a British dominion status till 1956 for 6 more years. Now back to this. So in order to prevent two British dominions from fighting with each other, the then British Field Marshal convinced the Governor General of Pakistan to not send his troops in. So the Pakistani army played a different game. They recruited tribals in the thousands to create an Azad army that would attack Kashmir and take it by force. Also, army men from Pakistan conveniently took leave from their jobs and then went to assume command positions in the Azad army. Pakistan has continually denied any involvement during the 1947-48 war, but and the tribal attacks. But Shuja Nawaz, a brother of a former army chief, has provided archived Pakistani army materials that prove Pak army involvement. All of the preparations about this attack on Kashmir had begun as early as August 20, just 5 days after the independence of India and Pakistan. And the tribals began attacking and pillaging helpless villagers. Instead of moving on after capturing an area, they stayed put in those areas, looting and committing atrocities. During this time, only a batch of Jammu and Kashmir troops were defending the region. Hari Singh was on the back foot now. In my opinion, his greed to remain an imperial ruler had fallen flat on his face. In my opinion, he may have felt that India was a safer choice, and so he wrote to the Indian administration. India stated that she would send troops only if he signed the instrument of accession. Singh agreed to sign, provided Article 370 that granted special status to the state was added to the agreement and later to the Indian Constitution. Thus, India would be responsible only for the defense, external affairs, and communication for Jammu and Kashmir, while the rest would lay under the purview of the Kashmir state. So Singh signed the instrument of accession on October 26, 1947, and India lifted her troops to Kashmir. They successfully recaptured a lot of the areas that had fallen to the marauders, the tribal marauders. Now to the British involvement in the manufactured mess in the region. Around 60,000 men from Poonch and nearby areas, Poonch is here, and nearby areas had joined the army during World War II. After the war ended, they were discharged with arms. These men, who had been unhappy with the excess tax regime of Hari Singh, now began to fight the king's troops with these arms. Also, British commander of the Gilgit unit attacked and captured the entire Gilgit area and later Baltistan. So this is Gilgit. He captured Gilgit and then he captured Balchistan. He then acceded this entire area to Pakistan. So the war continued during 1948, 47 and 48. So all this was happening and the war continued on. Just a small addition to this. Unfortunately, Afghanistan, which is in the border, bore the brunt of this manufactured and sustained turmoil in the region. In my opinion, the Pakistan state, with the aid of US money, who had vested interest in the region, as the area is close to Russia and now China, played a big role in the unrest and continues to play a big role in the unrest. And Afghanistan is getting grinded due to the vested interests of all these powers, and the Afghani people, unfortunately, they are right in the middle of all the mess. So back to this. During the period of war, that is the 1947-48 war, in my opinion, at the behest of his British pal, Lord Mountbatten, the then head of Indian government took the act of aggression by Pakistan to the United Nations. The United Nations passed a resolution about it in August 1948. As per the resolution, first, Pakistan was to remove all its troops from the border, from the lands it had captured, and go back to Pakistan. If this condition was met, India had to remove all its troops, though she was allowed to maintain some troops in case Pakistani army came back to the region. After the first two conditions were met, a plebiscite was to be held under the watchful eyes of a UN delegation. Pakistan never fulfilled the first condition of this resolution. So, ipso facto, Pakistan is the reason why the problem persists. Pakistan may cry hoarse all around the world and at the UN assemblies about plebiscite and rights of Kashmiris, but in my opinion, it is all an act. The reality is, if the plebiscite had been held in 1948, after the resolution, the people of Kashmir would have voted to accede to India. And Pakistani army at that time knew this fact, that they would vote to accede to India. Hence, they never fulfilled the first condition of the UN resolution. So, it continues to be a problem. A ceasefire was finally declared by India and Pakistan in December 1948. The ceasefire was formalized in January 1949. In July 1949, the LOC was drawn and was mutually accepted by both the countries as the line of control. The LOC remains as it was then to this day. So it's a long video. I'll be talking about Aksai Chin in the next video. Hope you found this information to be informative. Please subscribe my channel if you want to know more about urban gardening in the balcony and about life in general. If you concur with the views I opinionated in this video, please like the video. And if you have any questions, please ask away in the comments. Thank you for your time. Hope all of you have a good day. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra.